Hey, and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Journey Beyond podcast, where we explore the depth of the self and spirit through bringing you from a place of stuckness to a place of purpose and fulfillment. I'm your host, Tim, and today we're diving into another beautiful episode, another beautiful interview with a very good friend of mine, Matthieu Spigarelli. And as we've been diving into the topic of self-love, me and Matthieu, we dive in a really in-depth conversation into the landscapes of your mind, how to open, speak, and heal your heart, the transformative journey that he went through, where he discovered meditation, he discovered the transformative practices of Dr. Joe Dispenza, how he became an adept of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and went on leading meditation groups here in Luxembourg for many, many, many years. Besides that, we talk a lot about his healing journey and how one can cultivate more love and live more through the heart. I'm super excited today to share this episode with you, so I hope you will take a lot of notes from it. And as you know, I'm super excited to share this here with you. So let's dive into the conversation about mindfulness, healing, and how to bring more awareness, love, and consciousness into our lives with Matthieu Spigarelli. Mr. Matthieu Spigarelli, it's an absolute pleasure having you on today's podcast. I'm so grateful, for our connection and friendship over the last couple of years. We go quite back, my friend, don't we? We go quite back.
Absolutely. Quite a while. But yeah, thank you, Tim, for having me on here. I am happy and excited to be having this podcast with you. It's a pleasure, and I'm very, very excited.
And I think with this being said, today's episode is all about self-love and how to find yourself through connecting with your heart. This is something that I have learned very strongly from you over the last couple of years, because I know we go back some years. I mean, we know each other now as well since 2016. I talked already a little bit on this podcast in my last episode that I did. Solo episode, I talked a little bit about the time, how I overcame my fears. I actually spoke, funny enough, you should know it because you were there. And I think you were one of the people that motivated me next to Manu Cosietti. I spoke about the first Super Saturday event where I spoke on our very first network marketing times, right? Why did I speak about it? Very simple, because the topic of last episode was more about confronting your fears and what confronting your fears means in your personal evolution process. And I overcame it by simply doing it. And the result was phenomenal. I was super happy and I overcame my fears, and it made me more into the person that I am today, right? Making a podcast like this, talking to people, talking to strangers, talking to friends, being able to ask good questions that make people go like, "Oh, let me think about this," right? So we go back since that time. Why don't you, before we jump into today's topic of how to truly discover yourself through connecting with your heart, why don't you give the audience a little introduction about who you are, where you're coming from, and what your specific field of work and study has been over the last couple of years?
Sure. Awesome. So my name is Matthieu, or whatever you want to call me, or Matt, or Maddie. I just introduce myself as Matthieu all the time. I'm 28 years old. I'm from Luxembourg. And currently I'm working in the field of healthcare, as well as, anything that has to do with investments, etc. So essentially, I had quite an interesting, I want to say, runway up until this point. I started my professional career, I want to say, in network marketing, where I got to meet you as well. And, probably for you, it was the same, but network marketing was really the thing for me that kind of catapulted me into life, because it taught me a lot of things about, life and how to, navigate through life, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially where I made, I want to say, my most interesting experiences when I was very young. And it showed me a different way to life than the conventional way that we know from, society and stuff. And so it started with network marketing, and there were a lot of interesting experiences. But, after like I want to say 3 years, I kind of, had to go about and, launch myself into, I want to say, the normal way of a 9 to 5 as well, because there were some issues with some companies that we had. And at that time, I just needed money. And so I went ahead and went the 9 to 5 route with the clear intention that, it was for money, and that I would invest every single euro or, dollar that I made from that job. And so I worked a job for about 5 years. I invested my money very wisely. And after 5 years, I was able to, quit that job again and truly follow my passions. And that's where I went ahead and, 100% went into, everything that has to do with healthcare, massage, and healing people, essentially, making people feel better, helping people, live a better life. And number two, as I was working the 9 to 5, it was in the finance industry. So I gathered a lot of knowledge about investments and managing money as well. And so number two, what I decided to do after that was be still engaged in this world of investments. Whether it be trading or crypto now, that has been an upcoming industry as well. And so, yeah, I've been mainly focusing on those two things over the last 2 to 3 years. Um, and now we're here. Now we're here on this podcast. So it's a little bit about myself and where I come from.
A very humble introduction. I said last time to Michael when we had our interview, he was introducing himself on such a surface level where I said, like, man, you have not even scratched the surface of the surface. Come on, dude. No, but I really appreciate you introducing yourself, and every single time, and that's what I love. Like the people that I've spoken with over the last couple of weeks for this podcast and as well outside of the podcast were the people that we started with along on this journey. And one thing which we all agree to is something that I'm super, super proud that we all learned. We learned at a very young age how to take risk and how to be absolutely blunt in your endeavors and to just actually close your eyes and just take the leap of faith. Take a leap of faith. You have no idea where it's going. Of course, you have dreams that are being held in front of your eyes, and you are supposed to, visualize them. The law of attraction came in, all of these practices, the accountability groups, all of these things were so beautiful, and they helped us to not only dream, but as well be bold in our moves. Because everyone that I'm speaking to or that I've spoken with over the last weeks, and there have been a lot of people, good friends of yours as well, good friends of mine, since friends that I haven't seen for like years now because they went on their own journey. This journey that we all went on enabled us to, even now, years after, continue taking those leaps of faith. I think that is one of the most profound lessons that I ever learned, is to not settle for less than what you know that you're capable of, like understanding your own self-worth. And I think with the self-worth, confidence, the money skills, the time management skills, the just skills that you learn in general, you gain a lot of comfort and self-love for yourself, which then enables you to be able to say, actually, you know what? I could be very comfortable in my 9 to 5, but I have bigger dreams. But I have a goal that I want to reach. And every single one, that's why I love connecting with people. Every single one that I've spoken with over the last couple of weeks is in the same lane. They are like, yes, I'm working, but I'm working towards like a bigger goal. Because I know my exit strategy. I know my goal, when to get out of the situation that now is paying the bills, now is getting me to point B where I want to go. But they have those dreams. So, man, I really appreciate you coming on here today. And I think you the opposite of exaggerated quite a lot with your healing, with your healing work, because Matthieu, for you to know, Matthieu has not only been one of the leading figures in the network marketing world here in Luxembourg. When we started out, he was a person who was always leading from his heart, but as well in his later practices of healing, he brought another interesting cornerstone to Luxembourg, to a big group of people actually that has never encountered that world before. And I'm talking the world of meditation, and I'm talking about the world of healing from the heart. So why don't you give us a little introduction and share that moment when you found out that meditation is becoming and becomes a vital part of your life?
So I wouldn't want to say it's going to be a small introduction, but I'm just
I
going
know
to
it's not.
just going to go ahead and explain, where this comes from. So essentially, funny enough, when we did network marketing, I read this book. It was called Millionaire Success Habits, from Dean Graziosi.
Being Graziosi, yeah.
Yeah, and he had this process of how to find your why. And he had like a 7-step process on how you find your why. And when I did that, I came to the conclusion essentially that my why, or my reason of being, or what motivates me, or what gets me up in the morning, is to have a certain drive to help others, to help others live a better life. So that's really essentially how this intention started. And
Can I
then,
can I just quickly interrupt you because I you should have seen my face. I was just like, that's fucking amazing that you're mentioning this. Just a quick side leap. For everyone that doesn't know that technique, I would highly recommend you to read that book because it's called The 7 Levels of Why. The 7 levels of why, same for me. I discovered my true like being and like beingness out of this technique. Just to everyone listening right now, it's actually very simple. And then we're going to continue with the journey. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just found it beautiful that you mentioned it. The 7 level deep technique works this way. You ask yourself the simple question, why? Like, why do you do something? Why do you get up and go to work every single day? And once you get an answer, you try to dissect that answer even deeper with the question, but why do you do this? Right? And you see where I'm getting with this. You just take the answer that you're giving to yourself for the question of why you're doing something, what's the purpose of doing this, and you just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's actually a psychological process behind this where you can ask yourself, and you should test this for yourself. Once you reach the 5th time that you're asking yourself the question why, your rational mind shuts off. And because you can't find a deeper answer than that from a rational perspective. And from that moment onwards, the question 6 and 7 are going to be the most profound answers that you will ever hear for yourself because they come from the heart. Everything until layer 5 is purely rational. Number 6 and number 7 specifically is going to be really hard because you have to get really, really honest with you. But number 6 and number 7 come from the heart and they're emotional based. I highly recommend every single one of you to try it. It's been a blessing, and I'm super happy that you had it as well. So please continue.
yep. So yeah, that's how essentially I set the first intention of, hey, I actually want to help people. And then came 2017, where I experienced one of the toughest relationship breakups that I have experienced, that I had experienced so far to that moment. And I couldn't control my mind anymore. And I was kind of going crazy because I couldn't stop thinking, about what could have been about the person and whatever. It doesn't matter. But I just was at a point where I couldn't control my mind anymore. And I was wondering, hey, there has to be a way. There has to be a way how I can snap out of this. With all the teachings that we had before, I thought it would be very easy. But, in the very moment when I felt those emotions and when I had those thoughts, I just couldn't. And I had to find a different way, So I contacted one of my good friends who I knew was into, spirituality and stuff. And he always talked to me about this one course that he was watching at the moment. It was very interesting, blah, blah, blah. So I called him up and he said, hey, let's watch this course together. I'm sure it can help you out. And so we watched this course, and, it was by a teacher I thought he was kind of weird. And, I couldn't really understand why he was doing what he was doing. But I took one thing away from that course. And he said, watch the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? And that was the only thing I remember from that course. The rest I don't remember. But so one night when I was on my own, I said, hey, let's watch this movie. So I put on the movie. I was watching the movie all the way to the end. And, at the end, they have like the credits and everything coming up. After the credits, they had the different scientists of the movie presenting themselves and, giving a 1-minute introduction about what they do. And I stopped. I clicked pause on the fourth or fifth scientist that was there, and that was Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so I stopped, and I don't know why, because it intrigued me. And I typed in his name into Google. It was 2 a.m. at that point. I had to get up at 6 a.m. to go to work. Um, I typed in his name into Google, and I found his newest book, Becoming Supernatural. And immediately at 2 a.m. that night, I bought the book, the audio version of the book, and I downloaded it, and I put it on my phone, and I put it on my computer. And then, after that day, the next morning, I went ahead and I started listening to the book. And up until today, I have listened to the book 11 times. And so that's really, it just opened up a whole new world for me, this book. And so I got into the teachings of Dr. Joe. I, started listening to his meditation, started listening to the book. I started buying courses, the intensive and the progressive workshop. I did everything essentially. I got into, I got into his teachings, got into this whole world. And then finally in March of 2019, I attended my first Dr. Joe week-long retreat. So it's like a seminar that goes over the course of a week. And that's essentially where, all of these teachings essentially went even deeper. And we went into those coherence healing meditations where I had my first experiences of seeing the effects, of seeing what it does to people when you, actually have a group of people that set an intention to send loving and healing energy to another person. And so from that, I came back home and I said to myself, hey, this was an unforgettable experience for me, especially because I'm just going to deviate here. I was with one friend there who has multiple sclerosis. So he's sitting in a wheelchair. And I was there with him. I didn't know him before, but he contacted me and said, hey, we're from the same country. And I kind of saw on a list that you were going to the workshop as well. Let's connect, etc. So we went there, and at the end of the seminar, the last day, we did what is called a pineal gland meditation. It's essentially a meditation that goes on for about 4.5 hours. And from that meditation, I got up and I, turned around to look at that friend, what he was doing, and the guy was just standing up. He was just standing there, got up from his wheelchair, and I was like, bro, what the hell am I seeing here? I see this guy who, cannot walk, and he's just standing there after meditation. And I went up to him and we took a walk together. And, it was just mind blowing to me to see the effects. And that's truly when I started seeing and understanding, hey, this is actually like, it's working. It's not just some, weird hocus pocus magic stuff, whatever. But I actually see it happening with a guy that I know. He's walking here next to me. And yeah, so when I came back from that, I said to myself, hey, I have to share this with my closest people. And so that's when I created the meditation group here in Luxembourg. And at first it was just a couple of friends, and through just people having cool experiences, they invited more friends. And yeah, ever since since March of 2019, we have been running this group. And still to this day, every Sunday, we are hosting a meditation. And part of those meditations are these coherence healings. So where we have those healing meditations as well. So that's just a quick little introduction of how I got to this practice.
I have so many questions. I have so many questions, but one thing what I want to comment on already, you have to know that the first, I think, good 2 years, wasn't it? The first 2 years we did it in your apartment,
Mm-hmm.
in your tiny apartment, and just tell me what was the biggest amount of people you had in your place?
I think 22, 23.
And I could tell you the place was not made for
It
22
was like
people in
25
there.
square meters. It was very small. We had people sitting outside on the terrace.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. But the most beautiful thing is we did it every single Sunday. We did it every single Sunday. You knew your ritual for a Sunday for 1.5. For me, I think I tuned out after like nearly 2 years. After 2 years, I think end of 2021, end of 2020, beginning of 2022, I think I tuned out and I wasn't coming that regularly anymore. But until that point, it was every single Sunday. The ritual, 8 o'clock, Matthieu's place, meditation, an hour and a half of vibing afterwards. And you go home and you start into the week from such a vibe and feeling of bliss. You meet people, you meditate together, you connect from the hearts. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I wish you people could like feel what I'm feeling right now, but I'm getting a little bit nostalgic, right?
Absolutely, man.
It's
It's hard
bringing
to
up old feelings.
it's hard to understand it if you have never experienced it, because you cannot translate energy into words. And
100%.
a lot of people have felt very different things there.
But to make it more approachable for people who don't know what you're talking about, could could you take a minute and explain what exactly Joe Dispenza's teachings are, what he has taught you, what you understood from it, and what what concept of his profoundly changed your perspective on life and on your journey of self-healing?
Mhm. Um, so essentially, Dr. Joe is going into, so his goal, I guess, is to scientifically prove what we see as mysticism or as spirituality, and he made it his life's mission to kind of prove in a way that we all can understand it, what it really means to change and overcome yourself. And what most people see as Buddhism and spirituality and whatever, he explains it in a very, very easy, I want to say easy to understand way, and with a clear formula on, hey, you do this and you get this result. And so essentially the goal is to understand how our thoughts and our emotions create our reality. So in the very simplest way, how I can explain you what Dr. Joe is doing is he is showing people a clear way to understand, to apply on how your thoughts and your emotions are actually creating your reality. So if you want to live in a different reality, if you want to change your life, if you want to change any aspect of your life, essentially it's your thoughts and your emotions that are the key to this change. And so if you want to change anything in your life, you have to work on your thoughts and your emotions. And so he does it through the act of meditation. And his meditations are very specific to his teachings. And I would say that if a random person just hits up one of the advanced meditations from Dr. Joe, they wouldn't understand anything, because it's very specific to his teachings. Um, Everything from the style of the meditation to the words to the music to everything. Everything is very, very coordinated and very specific. And he explains it in his teachings. He explains it in the seminars as well. And yeah, it's very, very directed to his teachings.
Mm. And how would you define his teach? What would you say makes his teaching so specific? Because I mean, he has been gaining a massive following over the last years, especially around pre-COVID time, then throughout COVID massively as well. Like, what do you think made his style of teaching so unique? Is it the group mentality? Is it filling event spaces, expo spaces with like 1,500 participants, all coherently doing the same thing? Is it his voice? Is it the tonus that he uses? Is it the breath work that he implements? What do you think makes it so unique in a way?
Everything, everything that you just said. But yeah, Dr. Joe, he has a very special personality. So when he was younger, he had a very bad accident where he got run over by a car when he was riding a bicycle, and he had a lot of bones in his back that were broken. And essentially, he healed himself through the act of meditation and through coherent thoughts and coherent emotions. He didn't go through surgery. Doctors told, several doctors told him he could never walk again, and he healed himself through the act of meditation. And so he made it his life mission to, study it. And ever since he had that accident, he's been studying the mind-body connection. And I think he is one of the few who is truly an expert in it. Not just because he has, read a lot of material on it, but because he has a lot of physical evidence that this stuff works. And so the cool thing is that because he has been doing so much scientific research in his seminar, so he's analyzing people, he's doing brain scans, he's doing blood tests, he's doing every type of tests that you can imagine that you can do on someone, and he sees what is working and he sees what is not working. He, all of his meditations are built in a way that all of the words that he uses, they have seen the effects of his words on people's brain scans, essentially. So they have seen, okay, if we implement this word, or if we say it in a different way, or if we, use this music, or if we do this first and then do this, then we have a much more profound effect in 80% of the people that we analyze. So through this analyzing, through this, scientific component that he brought into the spiritual work, essentially, what we call spiritual work, is what makes him so unique, because he has been studying it in a very, very profound way that most people don't even do the effort, putting the work to go that far, essentially.
For sure. And I find it admirable because he has so many testimonies. And I mean, I don't want to make this episode about Joe Dispenza. I want to make this episode about you, but I like, this is another significant part through which I got to know you a little bit better as well, right? Because we met every single Sunday for 2 years, and we connected in so many beautiful ways, on a mental level, on a spiritual level, with the entire group around, and it was very coherent, that frequency that you were creating in your space, and it was just a beautiful place, right? Because that's what I'm saying. Like, Joe Dispenza has as well, for me, been a big impact for a certain period in my life, right? What I had a very interesting, well, to make it simple, I want to take a small step back from Joe, because I know that Joe is like only one specific niche that you can meditate in, and it has a very technical approach, right? A very rational approach. But as this episode here, I want to dedicate it to the study of self-love, and what impact meditation can have for your personal development, for your spiritual development, for your connection with yourself. In your experience, or for someone new to meditation, how would you describe the connection between mindfulness and heart-centered living?
Interesting. So so one thing before we get into this is that most of my teachings, or most of my knowledge, is of course based on Dr. Joe. It was the first meditations I did. I did other types of meditations as well. I read many different books as well. However, I found that it all comes back to this. So even though there is different information that I gathered, it all fits into this category.
Which makes sense, because he's basically picking fruits from many different cultures and just bringing them into his own concept, right?
Exactly. So essentially, it's all one. So the mind and the heart, they work very closely together. The heart is the emotions, and the head is the thoughts, essentially. So the heart and the brain are very, very closely related. So when we talk about meditation, or when we talk about mindfulness and living from the heart, it's essentially, the idea is about creating a certain coherence between your emotions and your thoughts. Because a lot of people say, hey, you got to think positive. But if you think positive and you feel like crap inside, you're not making any difference in your life. And the same goes the other way as well. If you're trying to feel good, but you're talking about things that annoy you all the time, there is no coherence. And so when we create this coherence between our thoughts and our emotions, the vibrational field that we're emitting, or the vibrational energy that we're emitting, is much more clear and much stronger. And so the act of meditation is essentially just a way to become familiar with a certain version of yourself. So when we say let's go into a meditation and let's meditate, it's all about, of course, at first it's all about quieting the mind. I think for everyone who wants to get started in it, or who to everyone who starts in meditation, the first thing that most people say is, but I have so many thoughts that are coming in my head. I'm getting distracted all the time. I cannot sit down for 2 minutes and not think, because there's so much going on in my head, etc. So I guess in the beginning it's very important, I want to say, to learn how to silence your mind, to find a way, whether it be just focusing on your breathing, or just some other type of guided meditation that is helping you to kind of concentrate. Because in our society today we're so pushed towards having a very short attention span, that most people cannot concentrate for more than 30 seconds, or for more than 60 seconds. So I guess in the beginning, the most important thing is just to train your mind. Your mind and your body can be trained like a dog. Like you can train your body. The more you do it, the better you get. And so in the beginning, it might just be 10 seconds or 20 seconds that you can focus on something or on nothing. And the more you practice, the better you get. And then once you manage to kind of silence the mind, or kind of control it, I want to say, to an extent that you can control your focus. It's not about controlling what you're thinking, but it's about controlling your focus, because thoughts are coming. Even if you've been meditating for a couple of years, the moment that you go into meditation and there is still some thoughts coming, depending on your emotional state, or depending on what's going on in your life. There is still those situations where a lot of thoughts are coming in. It's just a matter of do you focus on them? Do you get taken away by them? Do you get distracted by them? Or have you learned how to focus on a specific thing, even though you lose focus for a couple of moments, and then you bring your focus back. And then once you're at that point where you can kind of manage it, you can go a little bit more into specifics of meditation. There's a lot of different meditations that have different intentions and different effects. But I think, to me, the most coherent one is creating this coherence between the heart and the brain, because essentially it's the essence of creation. Once we have established a certain coherence with our emotions and our thoughts, we become a magnet to the reality that we truly desire.
That is beautiful. Can you repeat that last sentence again? I love that.
When we create coherence between the heart and the brain, we become a magnet for our desires. Create anything and everything that we truly desire.
I really love that quote, man. I think I'm gonna pin that extra again down in the descriptions.
Yeah,
No, but
sure.
you're absolutely right. And there's one thing to what you said that resonates with me a lot, because I'm a big thinker, right? A lot of the stuff that is happening in my life happens in my head. I always love citing, and I've cited it so many times over the last years. The quote from Seneca: "You always suffer twice, first in your mind and then in reality." It has been for me such a big thing, where I overthink to the point where I get stressed out and I panic, and my sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. It's just telling me oh, whoa, okay. I'm already thinking about scenarios that are supposedly happening probably in my next life, which will never happen in this life, but I'm already stressing out about them. So when I actually got into meditation, for me, the hardest thing was to calm my mind. I'm a very rational person with a lot of strong emotional chords, but a very rational person, right? So I know that the mind creates a new thought every 7 seconds. And it's very hard to stack those thoughts, because if I'm just listening to you, if I'm not focusing on you and I let my mind flow freely, every 7 seconds I get something new. It's oh, what do I do for work tomorrow? Oh, this light over here is very bright. The next 7 seconds, do I need to go to the bathroom? Am I thirsty? I feel like I want to have a snack, right? So your mind is constantly producing. That's its only work, to constantly produce new information. And
Mhm.
you, from your state of conscious observation, need to address those thoughts and align them in a certain way that you become the master of your thoughts. You can say, I want to have one thought and one thought only. Um, I discovered for myself that breathing can help you a lot, because the breath itself helped me personally. Before I even knew Dr. Joe Dispenza, through the guys that we were learning from in the United States, like Luke, Jamie, Christian Jukes, etc. They opened already the world of breath to me, because through your breath you connect through God. They're very spiritual, but through calming your breath and just having one steady flow of breath in and out, you can control the thoughts that are coming into your mind. Because if you put your focus and your attention on your exhalation and your inhalation, your mind has no time to think about anything but the conscious regulation of your breath.
Mhm.
So that's, for example, for me, breath work has been the essence, the basic, before I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? I was happy that I already did this work, because otherwise, in the Joe Dispenza coherence meditations, when he's like screaming at you, now inhale, you're just listening and you're like, whoa, okay, wait a second, I need to coordinate a little bit. So it helped me a lot. And what I, for example, I like, maybe to give some cool resources that, like, how I um disciplined my mind a little bit to come to terms. I did two things which I really love. I still do them to this day. It's setting up a candle and just staring at a candle for a very, very long time. I think the longest I did was literally, I took like a candlestick like this, and I watched it until it was entirely burnt out. So I
Mhm.
think I was just sitting there in this trance type of state for 2 hours. I
Yeah.
mean, I did go to the bathroom in between, yes, but I went back and I continued watching. Just 2 hours, because this helps you to always refocus just on the
Mhm.
candle flame, just on the candle flame, just on the candle flame. And another beautiful thing that I did, that I actually learned from a coach that I was working with a couple of years ago, you know him as well, um, was actually called box breathing. Like, nowadays, if you search it, you can find it under box breathing. But there's a beautiful YouTube video, which is Bach in G minor, which is like a composition of Bach in G minor, and it has a very rhythmic beat where you
Mhm.
can literally, to the count of your heart, you can count to four on the tact itself, right?
Mhm.
And what you do is you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and you repeat. And but the song goes on for what, like 10 minutes and 26 seconds. If you do this, you calm down, and that's relaxation that you feel afterwards.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
incredible. I think I'm going to link it down below in the descriptions as well, because for me, that has been like major thing that helped me get into that state. Did you ever experience like any type of meditation before you got into Joe Dispenza? Or what are some things? Because you told me recently that now you do different types of meditation. You do have different approaches to things. What do you do, for example?
So before I I tried something called quantum jumping,
I love
um,
it.
which
I
is
love it.
super cool at the time because it was very short meditation. It's kind of like just a shift in energy, essentially. But
Mhm.
those I really liked. Then I did, of course, a lot of Dr. Joe. Um, Now, to be fair, I still do a lot of Dr. Joe, mainly Dr. Joe.
Mhm.
Then I have one breath work that I love doing. That is from it was a group called Light Warriors on Facebook, and it was in 2020, and they made like a free online retreat where everybody could participate. And I have this meditation from there, which is super cool. It's super short. It's like 12 minutes. It's breath work and super good. And then what I started doing with my girlfriend as well is because she's not so into Dr. Joe meditations, but she likes random YouTube meditations and
Random.
random YouTube meditations. And as funny as it sounds, they are, some of them are very good. There are some very talented people on there. And if you do a little bit of research and just try, try stuff out, There are some really good ones. So I've been doing some of those as well. But for me, mainly like my daily work is still Dr. Joe meditations, because to me it just never gets old. As an I want to say an advanced student, someone who has been to a seminar, I get access to the newest meditations that he releases. They're just very good.
It's funny how there are certain types of people who love being pounded even while meditating and just being like kind of screamed at in a certain way. And I understand how certain people do not like it at all. Like I remember back in the days, I showed it to my mom. I was
Mhm.
like, or my girlfriend at that time, even I was like, look what I'm doing. This is pretty cool. I love it. And she's like, I cannot listen to this guy for 5 minutes without freaking out because it's just too heavy. It's too heavy, right?
It
But there.
depends. It depends on the meditation, to be honest. Like the
Mhm,
last one he released is tuning in with your heart, and it's a very very soft meditation. But I think the most important thing here again is the understanding.
mhm,
If you haven't built a model of understanding about his work, you don't you see that the how gets much harder if you don't understand the why. If you understand
mhm,
why you're doing something, the how gets much easier.
mhm,
So to me, that's the most obvious thing that people the issue that people have with these meditations is that they just don't understand. They don't understand the words. They don't understand why they're doing that, why he's saying that, why they have to do that. So I think the model of understanding that people build is the most important thing here.
mhm,
But yeah, I've been trying a lot of different stuff, but it always draws me back to his meditations.
to the
Um,
roots.
One other thing that helped me also to build a certain focus is knowing the difference between a convergent and a divergent focus. A convergent focus being a very uh, very specific focus, let's say on a specific thing, for example, in your breath, or on a part of your body, or a convergent focus can also be on a person or your phone or your laptop or whatever. And switching between a convergent and divergent focus, divergent being the focus on space, so the focus on the space around you. So not necessarily having a focus on your body, but let's say the space around you or the space in the room, or just an expansion focus of an ever expanding space all around you. And learning this difference between a convergent focus and a divergent focus is what helped me as well, to truly build a strong focus. That is something that I wanted to add as well.
It's very interesting. How did, in your experiences, how did this entire, practice of, at the essence of it, self-loving change your life? How did it change your daily life? How
Changed
did it
every
change you as a person?
Bro, it changed everything in my life, bro. Everything. I became a completely different person since I've been doing these practices. And to an extent, I think it's not just the practices, but I think it's the model of understanding. And to me, that is even more important than meditation, because meditation is just, it's an action that you take to convert what you have learned into practice. However, the learning part, the building a model of understanding of who we are, where we come from, what this reality is, what is the nature of our personal reality, what is energy, what is the physical world, what is the non-physical world, all of these things. And the fact of having built a model of understanding of what this reality truly is and how it works is what has made the most difference, more than the
Mm,
practices. The practices help you translate it into life, into your personal life. However, if you don't have the understanding, you can meditate as much as you want. It's not going to make a difference, because you don't know, again, you don't know why you're doing it. And once you know why you're doing something and how it helps you, the how gets much easier.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree with that because I think the word meditation, and I've mentioned this over the last couple of episodes already, that there are nowadays in 2023 a lot of very, very powerful words that we take for granted and we use them without understanding the meaning behind them. So same as I've encountered this a couple of times, not gonna lie, over the last year where I met people and we talked about their well-being. They're very stressed out. They have problem in their relationships. They're a little bit burnt out from their job, right? And I tell them like, okay, so what do you do? What do you do to like work on this? And it's like, oh yeah, I meditate. And I was like, okay, so how do you meditate? Yeah, I sit down for like 5 minutes every morning, and then I just think, and yeah, I try to calm down, but it doesn't work. And then I go to work and then I'm stressed. But yeah, I meditate to calm my mind down. And I'm like, wow. So you're literally just using the word because you think the meaning behind it will help you itself without understanding why you're doing it. Right. And I think with the world nowadays, it's quite easy to get trapped and entangled into this world of fear, anger, stress, um, emotional kind of like reactivity to certain things happening in the world, where people, there's a lot of hate going on in the world, right? There's a lot of hate going through people's minds. Why do you think people should focus more on themselves? Why do you think people should focus and direct their all of their energy inside instead of outside? Why do you think self-love is a practice that needs to be promoted way more than reactivity into the
Well,
world?
what is creating a reality? What what world is creating your reality? Is it the external world or is it the internal world? I mean, let's be honest, we can all agree that it's the inner world. Like the way we feel and think inside is what we're going to experience outside. So the more we react to stuff outside, the more we, let's say it like this, it's very easy. Whatever you focus on grows. If you focus on the problems in the world, you're going to have more of them. And if enough people do it, we're going to have more of them. So why do you think we have the current situation in the world that we have right now? Because we have a lot of media, we have a lot of essentially content that people consume on a daily basis, hours and hours and hours on end.
Polarizing content, very
Exactly.
polarizing.
Where they just put their attention on things that they don't actually want. So whatever you focus on grows. So when you start focusing on yourself, when you start focusing on the love that you feel inside, you can experience it on the outside, no matter what is going on in different countries, right? So it's all about where do you put your focus? And so that is truly why people should be doing it. It's not,
But then,
it's kind of to do it for yourself, but also do it for the world. Because when you start focusing on love, when you start focusing on happiness, when you start focusing on bliss and joy and all of these emotions, on gratitude, you're experiencing more of that in your reality, in your outside world, right? So if enough people do it, we're gonna have a different world.
I can already hear in the back of my mind some people like kicking in. I'm mental, like I'm the Origella right now. I'm reading their thoughts, and I hear a couple of people say, well, how can I focus on love if when there's so much war, hate, crime out there in the world? How can I focus on myself and be so selfish while there are people suffering out there? What would you say to them?
It's not selfish. It's selfish if you focus on the problems. Because the more you focus on problems, the more problems are going to come. Right? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on whatever is happening, but we should focus on, you see, how do we get to a solution? Do we get to a solution by thinking about the problem, or do we get to a solution by, thinking of a solution coming from an emotion of love, of happiness and gratitude?
Mm-hmm.
Or does the solution come from the emotions of fear and anger and hate and, these emotions? That's, to me, you're more selfish if you keep sharing the horror that is going on. If you keep making people more aware on all the bad things happening, you're actually more selfish because you're not helping them. You're just helping probably yourself feeling better about whatever is happening. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, truly, the most selfless way to go about this is um, to send love, light, and truth to the world. on a daily basis. You don't have to focus on the negative stuff. You can acknowledge it. You can see that there is, you can acknowledge there is a definite problem happening. However, you shouldn't spend time. See, the human race is very good at step one, identifying the problem. The issue that we have in the human race is that we get stuck at step one. We get stuck at focusing on the problem. Identifying the problem is good. Getting stuck focusing on the problem is not good. Step two would be to ask ourselves, everybody, each on their own, ask ourselves, what is it that we do want? See, when we're experiencing something we don't want, we feel a bad emotion. We feel sadness. We feel whatever. That is step one, identifying the problem. Step two would be, what is it that I do want now that I have experienced what I don't want, right? And once we know what we do want, well, let's focus on what we do want, right? So when we focus on what we want, it makes us feel better. When we feel better, we, have a different energy, have a different vibration, and it brings in more thoughts on things that we actually want. And like that, we can come to solutions, because when we think about what we want, we, through the law of attraction, attract more thoughts that we, of things that we do want. And the more we think about those things, the more things we, the more thoughts we attract about things that we want. And it's like this that we can get to solutions, not by focusing on problems.
And I would even add a third step to this, because as we're all social beings, right, we need a codependent environment enable for us to thrive, enable for us to, fully be functioning as a human being. Step number 3 is, I would say, once you've identified the problem, once you figured out what you don't want and what you want, you focus on what you want, you then, step number 3, because this is how you basically bring world peace, or you bring people together. Step number 3, look over to your left, look over to your right, identify who is struggling with step number 1 and help them reach step number 2. Because basically this is how we all grow. I just got a quick flash into my mind of a story that I listened to a couple of days ago by Jim Rohn, where he talks about a lot of concepts in relationship nowadays are based around the concept of, I get better for you, so you can, I take care of you, so you can take care of me, right? That's the typical concept. I focus on you, you focus on me, and that's how we thrive together. What if we change that entire concept and make it about, I take care of me for you and you take care of you for me, right? I hope I said that right now. Let me repeat that. I take care of me for you and you take care of you for me. For the simple reason of, imagine like love or harmony or, this one frequency of unity that we should be aiming for, instead of the duality that we're creating, is simply 2 straight lines that are running parallel towards each other, next to each other, and infinitively are running parallel to each other. The moment one of those 2 lines that are always in exact and perfect balance and distance from each other tips only a tiny little bit too much over towards the other person, or looks over to the right to see what's happening in that part of the world, that one straight parallel is starting to crumble. And 1% tomorrow won't make a big difference, but 1% compounded over 100 days makes a massive difference, right? It's huge. It's a huge difference. So after that 1% every single day looking into another direction, you will understand that you are drifting so far off the other person, like relating to relationships right now, or to the person next to you, to like that love towards yourself. If you're focusing, you can even make this as an analogy towards yourself. Like you and yourself are like 2 parallel lines. The more you focus, like the alter ego state focuses on the external world, the more the internal world is getting out of shape, is getting out of balance, is getting lost, is getting depressed, angry, getting influenced through everything. And that's not how we thrive as humans. And I'm a strong believer that yes, we are spiritual beings living a human experience, yes, But I believe our purpose here is to help, like do the work on ourselves, understand these concepts for ourselves, and then speak them out into the world.
Yeah.
Having conversations like this, where hopefully one day thousands, if not hundred thousands, if not millions of people are going to listen to this and going to be like, what if I try this out for myself?
Mm-hmm.
What if I try to bring my direction back 1% tomorrow, and then another percent the other day, and then another percent the other day?
Yeah.
That's what I believe, man.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I feel the same. However, I also do feel that we do come here to experience contrast,
Mm-hmm.
and that some of the things that are happening to the people, I don't want to say any specific things, but some of those things are um, that is essentially a choice that these people or these souls make before they come here to experience a certain degree of contrast, to experience what they don't want so that they can have a clearer image of what they do want. So now you're asking me, hey, so how could someone choose to, be born into a country where there is war and there is bombing and, he dies of that? We don't know. We simply don't know why these 7 billion souls that are on this planet choose the experience that they are experiencing right now. However, and that's where I come back to building the model of understanding. When we build a certain model of understanding how the nature of our personal reality works and where we come from and what energy is, and all of these concepts, we might also understand, hey, maybe these people choose these experiences to feel what it's like so that the soul can grow from it. And I think our goal shouldn't be to intervene with those things, but our goal should be to find the love and light within ourselves, to be shining the love and light that we have within ourselves to the outside world. And if it's meant to make a change, it's going to make a change. And that's something that I've experienced with my healing practice as well, is that yes, the mission is to help people, but sometimes you want to force it. Sometimes I want to kind of force to heal someone when it's not the experience that they chose. And everyone's healing journey, for example, if they have a physical issue or a mental issue, is very, very different. And what I found is working best is not by me putting in, more intention or more, hey, I want to absolutely heal this person now. No, it's about making people aware, giving people the knowledge and the tools, and essentially understanding that it's up to everyone to create their own luck, to create their own love, to create their own healing, right? So it's not our job to force it onto people. It's our job to demonstrate it, to live it for ourselves. And if we inspire people on the way, that's amazing.
That's a big concept that I learned the hard way last year and this year, in a different context. But I learned exactly what you said, and that's why it's resonating with me so much in a different context. And it helped me to realize that everything I can do in this life is do me, and everything I should be doing in this life is doing me.
Yep.
The more I focus on myself, the more I get better. The more I get better, the more I can focus and dispense some tiny fraction of my energy onto, putting myself out there by being me. Yep. And maybe some people are watching. Exactly. Maybe some people are like, I'm talking a lot about health and about the gym when I'm at work with certain people, or I talk about like my habits, what I do, right? I just speak them out. I don't want to teach them or praise them or tell them you should do this, but I'm just like, hey, I'm doing this. And if you're interested in what I'm doing, I can tell you what I'm doing, but I'm not going to be like, well, you have to do this. You have to have like a carnivore diet. You have to take cold plunges every single day. You have to torture your body and your mind every single day to get a better human being. Some people don't want that. Yeah. Some people are like, dude, let me be. Yeah. Let me be, right? And I think it's important to respect that. You can't change anyone, and you should definitely not try to change anyone, because the more you try to force it, it comes to your own demise.
exactly.
If you don't have enough love towards yourself, it's very dangerous to be trying to heal, help, and give love to someone else if that love should be directed towards yourself because you have problems and things you have to work on yourself as well.
yeah. And if we truly want to change, or if we truly want to see a change in the world, we have to start with ourselves. We have to demonstrate the change that we want to see in the world. We have to become the change that we want to see in the world. And it's not about, to me, that's my personal opinion. Some people maybe feel entitled to do something else. But to me, it's not about taking action towards world peace, for example. To me, it's demonstrating acts of peace, acts of love, acts of truth, acts of light. To me, that is how we change the world. If we have 100 million people all over the world demonstrating peace, demonstrating love in their everyday lives, that is what's truly going to change the world.
Being louder
Exactly.
louder than the loudest noise around you.
Because think about it. If we I find it so funny how everything gets portrayed in, on TV, social media, whatever. They always say no war. They always say no this, no that, no here, no there. They always, it's always coming from the negative perspective. And when you just go through your life and you emulate love, and you emulate peace, and you emulate happiness and joy and bliss and gratitude, you're not coming from the mind of, God damn it, there has to be a change in life because it's bad. You're coming from, I am, so grateful for me, myself, and I am, I am emitting this energy into my external reality. And you're coming from a very different point. And to me, that is the most profound understanding that, the big chunk of humanity kind of needs in order for us to see a different world, is that we all have to understand, when we come from the intention of love, light, and truth, it's going to change. And it might seem like that. It might seem like a lot of people want that, but most people are still focusing on what is wrong, even though they have a good intention. I'm not saying these people have a bad intention, but people are coming from the point of view of there's something wrong. That's why we have to change. But the essence of the thought is still there is something wrong. So there is no change. Right? So, but when we come from when the essence of the thought is, I am love, light, and truth, there is going to be change.
Which makes sense. And I think, but like this is where I have like two thoughts right now. First, like I want to first react to the last thing that you said, and then I want to rewind it a little bit because I have like another interesting aspect. I think a lot, right? I think a lot, and I try to get into other people's perspective and try to imagine what they think about what I'm thinking, just to get like that other side of the coin, right? There was a time when COVID was happening, when a lot of shit was going on in the world, when it was pretty dark out there, where I couldn't hear those words anymore of like everything is love, light, and happiness. There is fucking darkness out there.
Bro, me too.
And you have to understand that darkness is a massive part of the light. Without darkness, there couldn't be light, right? And I think this is like, again, it's a split. It's like trying to say, well, this is one thing and this is another thing. And this is what always bugs me because, well, to give a personal anecdote about the last 3 years of my life, or like I would say the last 2 years of my life, before I met you, there wasn't that much meditation, mindfulness. There wasn't so much focus on myself, on my inner world, right? Then your meditations happened and I try to go really, really deep, right? I try to go really deep. I try to discover the spiritual world even further. I try to enhance it with certain mind-altering substances, trying out mushrooms for the first time, having my first ayahuasca ceremony and experience, right? Big things that I just wanted to bring me deeper because I thought those things, they would bring me closer to light. But you know what they showed me? they showed me the darkest side of
Mm-hmm.
the world inside of me. Where I went, it was absolute pitch darkness. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so dark I couldn't even see a light. And this is what kind of like rugged me a little bit. It shook me because I was like, wow, I'm trying to go into this work of love and light and just, I don't know, man. I just want to make the world better. But the more I try to make the world better and find the light, the more darkness comes. And I understood throughout, the multiple experiences with those certain tools, I would call them tools. What it showed me is that you need to go through the darkness to see the light,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't, how can you expect to see light if you don't know what darkness is? You wouldn't even know what light means. You wouldn't even know what light looks like if you haven't seen darkness before. So I believe that the duality of life is understanding, accepting, experiencing, and integrating both sides. Is getting to know the light side of you that wants to help the world, but then taking that leap of curiosity over to the dark side. Like for example, some of our friends are doing right now. They've been over the last couple of years, they're going into kind of like dark magic and like dark works, just to experience that more and more and more. And I
Yeah.
don't believe it's necessarily bad. I
Yeah.
think it's profound and super important because I learned more through my dark sides about myself than I learned about my light sides.
It's the same concept as you have to experience what you don't want in order to understand what you do want.
Massive,
It's
massively.
different words for the same meaning. Some say it dark light, some say it what I want and don't want.
Hmm.
But essentially, it's all the same. We come here to experience a certain duality, to experience things that we don't want and make us feel a certain way, in order to understand how this is exactly what I do want now that I have experienced what I don't want. Right.
And
But again, a lot of people tend to get stuck in the dark side. They tend to get stuck in the that's what I don't want part, and they don't advance further because they focus so much on, hey, this is what I don't want, this is what I don't want, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, this is what I don't want, this is shit, whatever, right? So yeah, that's most people get stuck at step one.
most people get stuck at step one. One thing that I learned over the last year, because after that dark time that I went through beginning of this year, I had my good friend Daniel, which I had on my first episode, and we spoke about. Well, he brought, first of all, he's a very strong believer in Christianity. He's a very strong believer in Christ, and he preaches. He reads the Bible. He practices the Bible. He practices everything around it for years and years and years. And I really admire him because every time we talk, we don't only coach each other, but we talk about God a lot. And one concept that he brought to my heart, which like changed the way I look at things forever, is that, when you ask certain things of God or of the universe or whatever name you want to put towards it, he gives you the opposite to make you that way. Like, for example, I wanted to experience love. In my last relationship, that was my intention. My intention was to, wow, there is such a crazy chemistry. I want to experience true love. But what it told me, or what it showed me, what God showed me, what life showed me, is that the complete opposite is the case. And I experienced the worst heartbreak that I've ever experienced, right? But throughout this heartbreak, I gained something which I'm so happy that I have right now, because I've never in my entire life experienced so much love throughout the process for myself. I learned to love myself. I learned to appreciate, to honor, to respect, to acknowledge, to just become conscious of myself more and more and more. So I believe that this concept is super true in everything that you do. You ask for a certain thing, and obviously you don't like. How, for example, imagine you would have kids, or you want to have kids, right? You and your partner, you want to have kids one day. Would you want your kids to have a super easy life? Would you want them to experience everything from a super light perspective?
Yeah, of
Or
course.
would you wish for your kids to go through certain things which make them a more like respectful about life, about money, about responsibility, respect, honesty, loyalty? Like, how can you know what that means if you haven't experienced the opposite?
Yep. And let's look at it. In the end, you got what you asked for. You just got it in a way that you maybe haven't imagined before.
1 billion percent. 1 billion percent. Um, So another thing to get back, I had two questions, right? Another thing, which I'm curious about, what you think about this. So we are spiritual beings living a human experience, but the human mind is very flawed. It has been flawed as it has been working, in the evolutionary process of our species. We have always been a very flawed species. We have been a very easily manipulatable species. We have been a very easily like separatable society, like a being.
Mhm.
Don't you think it's super hard because the news that have been curating over the last centuries, let it be through newspapers, let it be through heralds, let it be through nowadays social media, mainstream media, don't you think it's super hard because as humans are super flawed beings, negative attention always gains more traction than
Mhm.
positive.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to say what you said before, is that why don't we just spread the message of love? Like in my mind, I was thinking, don't you think it's really hard to actually converge that? Because people's mind are so prone to that message of, like, if something bad is happening in the world, just imagine every single day there's like a new shock, there's new adrenaline being released. If you
Mm.
read this has happened, terrorist, you're like, wow, 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 what is
Mhm.
happening? It's
Mhm.
like the mind gets caught much, 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 much more than. I'm moving around too much. I'm like bouncing against the microphone the entire time. I'm just too excited. Um, no, but I found it a very interesting thought that there has to be a lot of change in the world for
Mhm.
our preconditioned mind to change the way we approach news, because we tend to go more into the negative than the positive, because it gives us a deeper hormonal release. It gives us more adrenaline, more whatsoever. How do you think we can tackle this? How do you think we can recondition the mind or the grand population to think in a more peaceful and loving manner and not hunt the
Mhm.
negative adrenaline boost?
Well, to be honest, the answer is very, very simple. Most people have never experienced love. That's why they seek negative emotions. Bro. It's very simple. People have never experienced true love. They think they have, but they have never. And once you have, you want more of it. And yes, our culture, whatever, is promoting. It's become a belief. It's become a belief that that negative news, negative emotions, adrenaline, whatever, is getting people hyped and getting people to want more of it. And negative news get more views than positive news. It's a current belief system that has been instilled in our society. Um, to me personally, I think it's because, again, people have never experienced true love, and there is no end to the love that we can experience. And I think that's truly what needs to happen in order for people to change. It's once they experience true love, not in the form of a partner, not even in the form of self-love, to be honest. It's something different. It's connection with this, I want to say, higher intelligence that is keeping everything in order. Once people, or once a person has this experience of what I want to say is true love, um, it's gonna change your life forever, and you're not gonna go back to your everyday life as you did before. And to me, it's just what you have been saying is just a belief system that is that has been instilled in society, and most people haven't done the conscious work to grow out of this belief system. And that's why we, as a collective consciousness, are still experiencing it. However, I think that it's not going to happen from one moment to the other. It's most likely going to happen over time, but it doesn't need 8 billion people to think like that. It just needs a small fraction of people, and I think we're getting there. Um, but yeah, I think that's how we can change it. It's just a belief. It's a belief system that has been installed, like you said, over a long period of time. Let's be honest, what is time, anyways, right? So time is not the deciding factor here. It's just a matter of energy, and the more people that are experiencing this sort of energy, this sort of love, the more we get closer to being able to instill a new belief system into our society.
I love that approach. What would you say are some simple, as we've been talking a lot about it, the heart-based practices that our listeners can take and implement, in their daily life to cultivate more love and consciousness and coherence with the world around them?
Mhm. I think number one is we have to understand that it doesn't come from the outside; it comes from the inside. So all of these emotions are not the result of something happening in our outside world. So that's what people have to understand. Number one is that all of these emotions of higher love, of happiness and joy and bliss and gratitude, can all be cultivated in the inside. We don't need anything external to be feeling those emotions. Um, so number one, it all comes from the inside. Number two, what I talked about before is something that helped me a lot, like a lot, is convergent and divergent focus with the heart. So essentially, um, being in a meditative state, whatever this is to you, and just placing your attention on your physical heart. Number one, feeling your heart, the way it beats in your body. Um, and then number two, feeling the energy around your heart, feeling this energetic field that your heart is emitting, and switching between these two focuses, essentially. What it creates is it creates a very strong, coherent, energetic field in your heart. And when your heart is beating coherently and is vibrating coherently, it's much more easier to bring up consciously a positive emotion of love, happiness, joy, gratitude, bliss. And so that is what worked for me. Now, another thing that has helped me a lot is because, the moment we get out of the meditation, or the moment we get out of this exercise and we go back into the 3D world, we tend to, fall back. And so what has helped me a lot is energy checks. So for a couple of years, I had an alarm on my phone, like multiple alarms. Every 3 hours, I had an alarm on my phone, silent alarm, but I would see it on my screen that said energy check. And so I would take 2 minutes, I would close my eyes, I would take a couple of deep breaths. And number one, contemplate, hey, how have I been feeling over the past 3 hours? What have I been thinking? What have I been feeling? And number two, doing this exercise of convergent and divergent focus with the heart, just to build a conscious connection with your heart. Because if, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And, if you can, let's say you stay in a line at the grocery store or you stay in traffic, it's all opportunities for you to tune into that blessed heart, to tune into that sacred heart. And the goal is, again, is to build a connection to it, to train your mind and your body to build this connection with the heart. And the more we do it, the better we get at it. And when it comes to a point that you can do it at any moment, you can truly start living through the heart. I think that's the best advice I can give, is to start small, to just do a couple of exercises, feel what it's like, and then try to incorporate it into your daily life, because it becomes a way of living when you live through the heart. It's not something that you have to do, but it's something that you start doing naturally, and it just changes your whole perspective on life, because it's much harder for you to feel bad when you live like that. So, at a point, it just becomes a habit of living through the heart. And once we have this habit established, we truly live in a different reality.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And what I can add on to this, just a quick little thing, because what you said is absolutely beautiful. Like you have a really good voice as well for meditations, and you should use it more often. I tell you, I know you did it already
I
in the
have a
past.
few. I have a few, but it takes up a lot of energy and a lot of thinking and a lot of time. But yeah, definitely.
I can imagine because the way from your speaking, maybe some other people are experiencing this now as well. Just from listening to you, from your calming voice, I had a long day. I'm just very zen right now. Um, just something that I wanted to add on to it because maybe some people of you, like some people listening right now, they have already tried, they have already started, certain kind of exercises, but they went on, they went off, they didn't like this, they didn't like that. It's not about following one practice and one practice only. It's about understanding the essence, the meaning behind why you're doing it, and basically cultivating your own way. Like
Exactly.
I know how certain, like I know for myself that if I would listen to a Joe Dispenza meditation nowadays, it wouldn't have the same impact as it had a couple of years ago because I've developed my own way of just being for myself, of loving myself, connecting with my heart, connecting with my breath, being in the moment. I've developed my own way, right? And that is 100% okay because I think in the world of NLP, like this,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I'm learning, that I'm actually becoming certified in, it all started in the world of modeling, right? Richard Bandler was a a person who back in the 1960s, 70s started looking at successful people and started thinking, well, you know, what's the reason of their success? Like, can it be possible that if I just simply follow exactly what they do, I get exactly the results that they get? Tony Robbins teaches it as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, or Jim Rohn or Napoleon Hill, right? They've all come to the same conclusions that you do what the other person does with understanding that you can't be them. You can
Mm-hmm.
imitate their actions and you can understand the reason for their actions and try to implement them on your own, in your own way, in your own words, in your own tone, pace, and rhythm. And that's how you replicate success. Not by trying to copy one on one another person, but by like extracting the essence
Mm-hmm.
and making it your own. I think this is like one thing that I just want to give to everyone listening because if you've tried and it didn't work, it's just you didn't find your way of doing it.
Yeah.
So take the time, experiment, try out many different meditations. And I promise you, there will be one day where it's just going to make click, like the
Mm-hmm.
switch in your head is just going to turn over
Yeah.
and your entire life will change forever.
Mm-hmm.
And like what I love saying is that it's not a destination, it's a journey. And the journey, like the destination behind the journey, is that the journey will never end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of life, is that you continuously can enjoy it without needing to worry that it one day will end, because until you take your last breath, it will not end. And
And
that's what I find.
it might not end after. Who knows?
Ooh. I mean, I'm loving this conversation so far. I don't know about you, but it's been like an hour and a half, and that's what I love about long form content. Um, we're slowly coming to the end, but before we're wrapping it up, and you get to tell the world where they can find you, where they can connect with you, how they can get a hold of you, because I guess a lot of people have listened to you and they're like, wow, this guy. Like, first of all, these two guys are pretty cool at their age, knowing that much already. That's not bad, right? But probably there are other people who are listening to you and they're like, wow, I want to, like, I have so many questions in my head right now. And there's so many question marks that I don't have an answer to. Before we get to that, I have one question for you. So, finally, for those looking to deepen their self love practice or meditation practice, what are some resources or some piece of information, books, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever form of resource that you like, that you can give to the people, where they can learn a little bit more about your world, about what you learned from it?
Um, hmm. Well, I mean, number one, do we even have to mention Dr. Joe? All of his books, seminars, retreats, whatever, everything super good, amazing.
Just to
Um,
name a few: the becoming
yeah,
supernatural, the
and-
breaking the habit of being you,
yeah,
and so on.
exactly. All of his books. Number two, Esther Hicks. Esther Hicks has been is still alive. She's a woman who has started in the 80s, started channeling a certain group of consciousness of higher beings. She started channeling them, and they started essentially writing a book through her. So she was going into a trance state, and her husband was interviewing her, asking questions, and this higher consciousness would essentially talk through her body and write a lot of different books. So these books are very, very good in terms of understanding what the reality that we live in is made of, and how um, we can uh, experience more of what we want through very different various techniques. They have a lot of very good hands-on techniques that you can apply today, that are actually very, very helpful in terms of managing your thoughts, managing your emotions, but also getting closer to your goals. So Esther Hicks, she's essentially the first book that they have written is Ask and It Is Given. It's a very short book about the law of attraction, essentially, but it goes much deeper. But it's a very, very short book. It's like 20 pages only, and it's like an introduction. And then they have the law of attraction, of course. The other one was law of attraction, money and financial abundance, something like that. And it's not just about money, but it's a lot about all the different concepts of manifesting and creating reality. And then number three would be Jane Roberts. Jane Roberts was a woman who lived in, essentially was writing books in the 70s. And she as well was channeling a higher consciousness called Seth. And she has written the book called Seth Speaks, or a lot of books about Seth Speaks. So Seth Speaks is essentially, again, this higher consciousness that wanted to write a book through a person that was in trance and channeling this higher energy. And it's interesting because he is sharing, or this entity or this consciousness is sharing its view from the non-physical reality. So how does it look like there, in the non-physical, and how do they perceive the three-dimensional or the physical reality, and how would they consider doing a few things that we tend to do here? So Seth Speaks is very good, and also The Nature of Personal Reality is one of my absolute favorite books, because that is for those who want to dive deep, because it's a very, I want to say, complicated book in terms of expressions, in terms of words used, because try to explain the non-physical with physical words, like it's very tough. So but a very, very deep and detailed book about how our beliefs and thoughts and emotions create our reality, and it goes very, very, very deep. So Jane Roberts, Esther Hicks, and Dr. Joe are my absolute favorites. And then of course all the books that people already know about, Think and Grow Rich, all of these, the law of success, and all of these books, um, very, very good books as well.
Nice.
And then
Well, that's already like a lot, man.
to be fair, I think that's pretty much it. In terms of podcasts, of course, your podcast, I mean, who wouldn't check out your podcast?
Right? I think so too. I think
uh,
everybody should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But apart from that, to be honest, that are the sources that I have used over the past years to build my model of understanding. Um, so yeah, I think that are my main sources.
The the last book you mentioned, you have to write. Anyways, I'm going to link every single book that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
because I read some of them. Esther Hicks has not been Esther Hicks, and the last one you mentioned are definitely I haven't read yet, so I will get into them as well. I know I have Seth Speaks. I think I listened to the audiobook once, and it's been
Mhm.
like a very insightful, very deep, and you have to take time with each
Yeah,
chapter that you
100%.
listen to. It's
100%.
not it's like the Bible. You don't just listen to it and be like, all right, okay, that's cool. That's the
And
story. It makes sense.
it's not an easy read. It's not an easy
No,
read.
no, 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 definitely not.
It is
Definitely not. It
definitely
takes
for
time.
those who want to go deeper for sure.
Yes. But for the other ones, send them to me again. I
Yeah.
will link them down in the description below. Where can people find you and how can they connect with you?
To be fair, it's a little tough. So
Michael,
thing is,
trust me, Michael said the same thing. It's like you can send me an email. It's,
um,
well,
well, to be fair, I'm not very active anymore on social media just because I don't see the personal, drive in it to build a social media. Um, I am most active on X or Twitter, under the username Bitcoin Lux. Um, it was a username that I had for the last like 6 years or so. But it's definitely where I'm most active in. So if people want to reach me, they can reach me through X, or email, to be honest. I do have an Instagram account, but I'm never on there or not allowed. Um, and yeah, I'm just not active on it. Let's say I don't post anything or whatever, right? Um, yeah, but truly, X or email would be the best that
cool,
you can link it in the description as well.
cool, cool. I will do that. Before we finish off, a question that I've been asking every single one of the other guests. And it's the final one. After that, it's going to be very short. I'm just going to be like, hey, whatever. Like, thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Bye. Ciao. And we finish, right? But before that, one last question. Promise it's the final last question. What is one advice that you would give to your younger self struggling right now, trying to understand the world? What is one advice that you would give that younger version of you that you know now that you think not only you back in the years, but other people out there can benefit massively from right now?
um, I would have to elaborate on that, but
Please do.
I think the fact of not taking life too serious at sometimes, because we tend to take life too serious and we get too much involved or caught up in step one. And so if we don't take life as serious, in terms of um, if let's say like this, if we go at life with a playful mindset, it's going to be much easier than if we try to be rigid and try to do everything according to plan. And whenever something goes wrong, we're exploding, right? So I think have a playful approach to life and also to all of what we talked about today. Because if you go into it and if you're like, bro, I got to make this happen because otherwise I'm not going to be living the life that I truly want. And, I have to meditate now and I have to open my heart now because otherwise I cannot, achieve whatever I want to achieve in life. I think it's a very good advice to just go at it with a playful attitude and not take life too serious in certain moments.
I love the question. I love this podcast because it's mine, I guess. No, I love this question. I love this question because it again just first of all gets people to think. It gets people to just go a little bit deeper for a second and just actually think about what they would tell their younger self, right? But Bro, thank you so much, Matthew, for your time, for the 1.5 hours. I told you it's going to be like 1.5 hours just talking, and it feels like nothing,
Bro,
and we
on
could
point
actually just
to the
double
minute.
it to the minute, exact 1.5 hours. But yo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the energy that you spent on this podcast. Thank you for the knowledge and insight that you provided. Thank you for just all of the advice that I took from it, the resources, the love that you gave, right? The calmness that you radiated. I'm super happy that, you know, I can call you my friends, and I'm super happy to have more rounds like this in the future, because I know there's like another couple of projects and things that you're working on, which, we could make extra episodes about as well, which I find really, really cool. Um, and we will for sure. Any last words before we head it off?
Well, number one, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to let my voice be heard. You're doing an amazing job, and I think in general, just the intention of bringing this information, or in general, information about how to live a better life to more people is truly what a lot of people need. So thank you to you for organizing this and for doing this, and it's truly a pleasure. And number two, I just want to send love, light, and truth to everybody listening.
Much appreciated. And as you know, with this being said, thank you all for tuning in, and see you in the next one.